Hey everybody, welcome to another day. This is Tech Sergeant T. I just wanted to take a few minutes and talk about something that I'd hinted about the other day, and that is, well, not so much about the Holocaust, but about the wisdom of, school officials showing footage, films, uh, and documentary type coverage to elementary school children of the Holocaust, of the U.S. military actually coming into the concentration camps in Germany and Poland and other places. Uh, they're pretty traumatic uh, pictures and films. It was the old, well, there might be some of you out here, out there that aren't aware of it. Everything now is digital. It's on video projectors or on flat screen TVs, things like that in the classroom. We had 16 millimeter projectors, and if we watched a movie, whether it be a school subject, or if on occasion they would show us regular movies like To Kill a Mockingbird, movies like that were just really great films. It was on 16 millimeter film, so it would require that the films be changed. You'd run the reel through, and they weren't good for the whole length of the film, so we'd stop part way through, sometimes depending on the length of the movie, a couple of times, and swap the reels. Used to even do the same thing to the little theater. We called it a theater that we had upstairs in one of the old army barracks out in the town where I lived. Nothing more fun than watching a cartoon and then a serial and then a 3-reel movie with real changes in between. But back to the subject. These were films that were shot in the concentration camps in 1945. I believe most of them was April of 1945. Different military units had gone into these concentration camps. They were largely unknown to run-of-the-mill soldiers and even some of the local civilians. It was quite traumatic. As a little bit of background, my father was in the 82nd Airborne paratrooper, and it had 3 battle jumps there in World War II. Been wounded. It went over in 1941, got back in 1945. So he'd seen a lot of action. It first jumped in North Africa with the army, and went up against Rommel, the Africorps, and then after they finished there, they jumped in Sicily. I'll have to talk about that sometime, because that was quite a traumatic operation. From Sicily, he went on into Italy, which is where he was wounded. Took some shrapnel in the leg and in the arm, and was evacuated to England for recuperation, and then back. Missed D-Day, but he came back in Market Garden, which was when they jumped in Holland. So he was, he'd seen some action. He'd seen some horrible things that he never even talked about for many, many, many years. And yet, when they went into that concentration camp and saw the horrors that were there, and these films, we got to be witnesses to those things. People were literally skin and bones. You had to wonder how in the world they could even move, how they could walk, because there was no muscle left. It was just decimated. And the open graves full of bodies, and the bins of wedding rings and gold teeth and things like that, and what they represented of all the people that had died. And the condition of the barracks and the shower rooms that were actually gas chambers and things like that. And it wasn't just the Jewish people. The Nazis picked on everybody. I guess there were a lot of the Roma or gypsies. Anybody that was an invalid, wheelchair bound or bed bound, they were useless to their perfect society. So they were taken care of. LGBTQ were systematically taken out. Anything that they felt might contaminate the super race was eliminated. The final solution, they called it. And to see those things as, 8, 9, 10-year-old child, because here we are 70 years later, and I certainly haven't forgotten them. It was quite something quite dramatic and unsettling. And I understand, the war was just over, and it was a horrific thing that I think they wanted us to be aware of and to remember. When I was in Berlin a second time, we had some German friends, and she was telling the wife was telling the story about when she was a small girl. They had been told that when the American soldiers came through that they would rape, pillage, and plunder all the locals, which wasn't true. She said they were escorted as a group of young ladies from a girls' school into a barn, and they were kept in this barn for 2 or 3 days under guard, and they weren't bothered. But she said on about the third day, they took these young people and they marched them through a nearby concentration camp. And I thought it was interesting because her statement was that she'll never forgive the Americans for making her aware of that concentration camp, which I thought was an unusual perspective on such a horrific thing going on, not only in their own country, but in their own neighborhood. And believe me, if you're burning bodies like they do they do cremations, you know that a body's being burned. So it was very hard on my father. The war was hard on my father. He had what they now call PTSD. Originally, I think World War I, they called it shell shock, and then they called it battle fatigue in World War II, and now they call it PTSD. He couldn't go to a fireworks demonstration. And he had a very unusual defensive maneuver. If you woke him up, if you poked him to wake him up, you were probably going to end up on the floor. He just kind of, my mother would poke him with a broom from a distance whenever she went to wake him up. He could come up out of a dead sleep and just hit you right in the head or in the jaw and knock you out, which I thought, I was, I had to tell you, ran into a guy at our current apartment building. I mean, this has been in the last week or so. Mentioned, our name, and it's a distinctive last name. There's only my family basically that lives around here. And the guy says, I worked with Ed out at Kennecott. There was a big joke out there when the new guys had come. That go wake up Ed. He's taking a little nap in the break room. Go in there, and he said, I went in there and I poked him, and he came up out of that sleep and cold cocked me. He said, I went out cold on the floor. I had to laugh because, we'd told the story in the family for years, but to actually have a first-hand witness who got knocked out by him kind of confirmed the story. But then I was a certain way that's kind of sad too, that you become so traumatized by events in your life that you feel the need to knock people out as soon as you wake up. But I guess the bottom line is that horrors of war, unfortunately, today they're still going on, especially this last couple of weeks. You hate to see it, and you hate the people suffering through it on both sides of the battle. And it never accomplishes anything permanent or worthwhile, I believe. But at that time, when World War II was very serious for our day and age. Had some, I think, long-lasting repercussions. The reality of the Holocaust is, a topic for another time. But again, the bottom line is, do we have to expose our children to those sort of things? Should they be exposed? We need to ensure that, the memories don't die of evil men and evil events. But boy, that was one that, of course, I won't ever forget. It's what it did to my father and what it did to others, and to what it did to all those people that suffered. I think for my next video, I'll try and find something a little bit more fun, a little bit more uplifting. But I'm just trying to give a perspective on how things were and how things are. And I hope this was a little informative. There was one more thing. I forgot about this. It just now came back to me. The people that were in those camps, my father said that the doors, the gates, the SS had left. The gates were wide open. And these people were still there. They didn't leave. They didn't know where to go. They didn't know what to do. Probably a lot of them were delirious. And when they came in, and you can't feed people regular food who have been under conditions of starvation for sometimes years. You have to start out with really soft. He said he'd give them a little handful of rice and a little cup of water, and they would stare at it. They wouldn't even, they wouldn't even try to eat it. And it took some time. And a lot of them died, post-concentration camp. And a lot of them survived for years afterwards. So it's Vollenbahn was the camp that the 82nd Airborne went into. And but they were all over, Dachau, one of the more famous ones that's still open as a memorial, had the sign out in front, Arbeit macht frei, work brings freedom, which is kind of ironic. You stop and think about it. That sign is still there. It was stolen at one time, but they managed to get it back, and it's still there, reminding people of what happened in that place. Well, as I was saying, I'll find something more fun to talk about next time. I hope you guys have a good day, and think about those things that we've had to endure over the years. Tech Sergeant T, signing off. Bye.